WGNY Newburgh, WJGK HD2 Newburgh Middletown, WGNY 1220 94.5, News Talk Sports.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Sunday edition of Jake's Hot Takes. I am your host, as always, Jake McVey, and for the uneducated among you, I come bearing terrible news. After a hard-fought 6-game series against the Indiana Pacers, the New York Knicks have been eliminated from playoff contention. And this one hurt to watch. I can't lie. And I'm going to get into detail with all of the grievances that I had going into Game 6, because there were a lot of grievances. But in the spirit of the compliment sandwich that I have been tampering with, been playing around with a little bit, I want to talk about Game 5 first, because Game 5 was kind of the last, well, it wasn't kind of, it was the last really good outing that this Knicks team had before the end of the season. So I'm going to get into that a little bit. It was a really good showing out of New York. I was really quite happy with a lot of what I saw out of the team. I think they played with a really great defensive identity that surrounded kind of harassing Tyrese Halliburton and not allowing him to play in a way that made him feel comfortable. And by removing him from the equation, the Knicks did a phenomenal job of kind of picking up the pieces, you know, the random Siakam buckets, the potential Obi Toppin drives to the basket, the Aaron Nesmith wide open threes. I think they did a great job of keeping all of those factors in check. It seemed like their defensive identity was kind of like in Boston, how they were not allowing guys to take their most efficient shot and kind of forcing a look that would force their second most efficient shot, which, you know, like we described in the Boston series, was a major defensive factor in the Knicks coming away with that series. And in terms of individual performances, I would say the only person that had a really bad performance was OG Anunoby. The shot chucking was really terrible out of OG during Game 5. I believe he went 1 for 7 from 3. And 3 for 14 from the field. So just a very rough showing out of Anunoby, but it wasn't the end of the world for Anunoby. I would say he had a pretty good bounce back game in Game 6 despite the loss, but I'll talk about that in a second. But OG was the only one who had a bad performance offensively. His defense was almost good enough for me to be like, yeah, he had an okay performance, but you know what, I need someone to take a little frustration out on, and in every segment I need somebody to pick on. So OG is unfortunately my guy that I need to pick on for Game 5. In terms of the guys who I think had an all right game, Deuce McBride, it was a pretty average McBride performance offensively in Game 5. And that defensive prowess that really kind of sprung him to the front of the bench roster that we saw during the regular season and that we saw during the Detroit and the Boston series was completely absent. And it wasn't just absent in Game 5. It was absent from him throughout the entire series. I would have to go back and look, and who knows, maybe I'll do a piece on how the Pacers managed to remove Deuce McBride from the bench rotation, because he undeniably was a major factor in the Detroit and the Boston series. And I think his withering defensive performances might have actually had a larger impact than you think, especially considering he is one of the primary guard defenders coming off the bench. I mean, he's one of the only guys coming off the bench that can really efficiently defend guards, at least until DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet started getting minutes. So, you know, it was an average offensive performance, bad defensive performance out of Deuce, but that's kind of been the name of the game throughout the entire Indiana series for Deuce. When it comes to DeLon Wright, pure defense, but 0 for 4 on offense. Really, man? Come on. You got to get a bucket at some point. Shamet had a couple nice defensive stops, but he also had a couple really bad defensive mishaps. But he had a good shooting performance. I'm not going into the stats because, I mean, Deuce was like 2 for 4, and then I think 1 for 3 from 3. DeLon Wright was 0 for 4 from the field, and Landry Shamet, I think, was, you know what, I'll check it. I'll check it just for you guys. Let's see. Yeah, Landry was 2 for 3 from the field and 1 for 2 from 3. Pretty much the average performances that we see out of these guys. The good, Mitch did exactly what we expected out of him. He had quite a few big plays that really brought up the entertainment factor. Lots of monster jams, really laying it down. And, Indiana never really had an answer for him in all of his time. He was one of the driving forces that pretty much kept us competitive in any given moment. He was always creating second chance opportunities, always making big defensive plays on guys like Siakam and guys like Nesmith. And even though his offensive prowess isn't that great, he had a couple really great defensive plays against Andrew Nembhard. I don't know why my brain went to Halliburton. You barely saw Mitch on Halliburton, and when you did, it was a mismatch. Bridges was pretty disgusting in the mid-range, and disgusting in a good way, I'll say. Bridges finished the day going 6 for 12 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3, finished with 12 points, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists. The much-needed three-point shooting consistency that we saw out of Bridges in Game 4 was completely absent, but that is kind of the name of the game. And in general, this was a pretty awful three-point shooting performance from this team. They shot a measly 27% from 3. So the fact that they managed to just play bully ball and really dominate in the mid-range and the three-point shot wasn't even really necessary gave me a lot of hope going into Game 6. And of course, it looked good. That's the thing, is that it looked like clean basketball. There was a couple of bad turnovers, a few bad mistakes from anyone, but that's any given basketball game. So the fact that Mikal Bridges was at least consistent in the mid-range, he shot 50% from the field, that's pretty much all you can ask for the guy. And of course, he's always a threat defensively, so I think Bridges had a pretty good game. And then moving on to the guys that were great, I think Towns and Brunson were the two players that I would quantify as great. Towns, of course, went, let me check the stats here. He went 10 for 20 from the field, very high volume, but finished the night with 24 points and 13 rebounds. I mean, shoot, right? 24 points and 13 rebounds on 50% shooting from the field, 25% from 3. He got the double-double, and the defense out of him was actually pretty good too. I liked what I saw against Turner. I liked what I saw against Siakam. He did a decent job getting Siakam out of rhythm, even though Siakam still had a pretty good performance. Pretty good relative to the rest of the Pacers. Even though Siakam was, I believe, the leading scorer for the Pacers other than Benedict Mathurin, I would still say that Towns had a pretty good performance, as well as Brunson. I think Brunson, it was the last good performance Brunson had of the season. 32 points on 12 of 18 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, 5 rebounds and 5 assists. It was great. He was hooping. There were buckets being made here and there. He looked good from 3 as well. I mean, shooting over 50% from 3 is pretty much all you can ask for out of Brunson. It's not like the 3 ball is his most effective shot or it's his most comfortable shot. So the fact that he looked good from 3 gave me a lot of hope going into Game 6. The name of the game today, by the way, is Gave Me a Lot of Hope. Because this series was really a series of hope being stripped away in general, I would say. From Game 1, hope being stripped away, choking that monster lead that we had, made me hopeful for Game 2 that we would be able to bounce back. And, if we could get that lead on them, all we got to do is not choke again. And then, completely dropping the ball in Game 2. Then, series is tied. We're going back to Indiana. We got a shot. Hope gets stripped away again. But that's okay because, I don't know, Game 5 was fun to watch, I guess. And the first half of Game 6 was pretty fun to watch. But yeah, going into the Pacers' performance, it seemed like Siakam and Mathurin were really the only ones trying. Indiana seemed completely deflated in terms of their ability to move the ball and their scoring ability. Their strategy of just shooting the ball from anywhere on the court and having it go in just didn't work for a game, which, it's nice to see that, but ultimately they still had the series lead 3-2 going into Game 6, and going back to Indiana for that game, it's like you just you get that kind of gut feeling where it's like, oh, this is going to go one of two ways. This is either going to be a crushing New York victory where, we go back to Game 7 and it's going to be the most exciting game of the playoffs so far, or Indiana's going to steamroll us in Indy, and that's going to be that. And unfortunately, the latter did end up occurring. But back to game 5. I think the Knicks played Halliburton really well. Like I said, they did a great job of generally just harassing him, keeping him out of his rhythm, not letting him get a lot of looks. Tyrese Halliburton finished the day with Tyrese Halliburton finished the day with 8 points on 2 of 7 from the field and 0 for 2 from 3. And as well as 6 assists. Not only did they remove Halliburton as a scoring threat, they removed him as a passing threat as well. 6 assists for Halliburton. It might be high for a lot of guys in the NBA, but Halliburton has such a standard of passing that seeing him only close out a game with 6 assists, it's like, wow, they actually did a really good job of shutting him down. Halliburton, I would say, probably one of the highest IQ passers in the NBA right now. So the fact that we were occupying those passing lanes and just generally being a nuisance to Halliburton was a really good sight to see. I loved seeing all the Indiana sad faces at the end of game 5, kicking him out of the Garden like that. And the only other guys that really came to play in any meaningful way, I would say, were a little rhyme there for you. Pascal Siakam finished the day 5 of 13, 1 for 3. He at least was playing with energy. I know the efficiency wasn't really there, but he had the energy to kind of keep the team going. And, he made a couple nice shots here and there. But overall, like I said, Towns and Robinson and even to some extent Anunoby, I think, did a really good job of keeping him in check, not allowing him to get to the spots where he feels comfortable from shooting. And that's really the thing with Siakam. He doesn't have any bag. He can't dribble the ball at all. He relies on positioning himself without the ball and then receiving that pass, only having to make 2 or 3 dribbles and then pulling up for the jumper. And he's an incredible jump shooter, and that's really where he generates most of his offense. But he's not really going to be a guy like Halliburton who's going to, drive to the paint like that, or a guy like Obi Toppin who's going to go downhill and handle the ball a little bit while he's going up for that layup. And I think the Knicks realized that kind of. I don't know why they couldn't realize that in game 6, but I think they certainly did a good job of keeping Siakam in check in game 5. The only other guy that had a really great performance out of Indiana was Benedict Mathurin, surprisingly coming off the bench. He finished the day with 23 points, 6 of 10 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 9 for 9 on his free throws. He was just driving to the basket a lot. And of course, naturally, when you drive to the basket a lot, you're more likely to accrue fouls. But obviously, fouls weren't the only piece of Mathurin's game. He also was looking pretty good on his layup packages and even a little bit in the mid-range. And of course, knocking down 2 3-pointers off the bench, it's not bad. Mathurin really failed to make an impact in game 6, but I think the counterpoint to that would be he didn't really need to. But he was the one guy that New York didn't really have an answer for, but that's kind of anticipated, especially in a game where a lot of the usual offensive threats are kind of absent. It is perfectly natural for a guy to be able to step up and generate his own offense just off the basis of New York not really anticipating the volume that he got. And it was an interesting game out of Mathurin. I mean, I'm sure the Pacers fans were pretty happy with his performance, but I mean, across the board, Nesmith had an awful game, shooting 1 for 8 from the field. Nembhard shot 3 for 8 from the field. The aforementioned Halliburton 2 for 7. Obi Toppin went 4 for 10. And then they were even getting guys like Jarris Walker involved, who Jarris Walker was not a guy that I necessarily anticipated seeing on the court at all during this series. So he got on the court for game 5 and game 6, and he was definitely a surprise off the bench for the Knicks in game 6. I don't think anybody was necessarily expecting the single big play that he had, of course. But, across the board, I would say the Pacers just looked flat. They looked flat, and they looked like they were lacking cohesion. And pretty much everything that you can say about the Pacers in game 5 did not apply to the Pacers in game 6. I mean, their transition offense was pretty lackluster. They just didn't look like they were really prepared to be pushing the pace of the game like they usually did. And that kind of happens, that 3-to-1 syndrome where game 5 you come out looking flat, and then, game 6 you get back into your rhythm, and especially when you're going back home for Indiana. But when we get back, we're going to be talking about the train wreck that was game 6. So get your sad caps on, New York fans, and much love. Jake's Hot Takes, WGNY 1220 94.5 News Talk Sports. We'll be right back after this.
Thinking about remodeling your kitchen or bath? Wayne's Way Wholesale Cabinets has a great selection of all wood cabinets in the styles and colors to make your remodeling dreams come to life. Go to wayneswaycabinets.com for more info. Wayne's Way Cabinets, 1829 South Road, Wappingers Falls. Call 845-280-0880. Stop by and talk to Wayne today. You'll be glad you did.
Your life relies on power all day, every day. With spring upon us, weather-related storms and power outages disrupt your home life, work life, and more. Don't be left in the dark. Call Essential Power Systems, your local Generac automatic standby power dealer, protecting your family, home, and business. Already have a Generac? Ask about maintenance, monitors, and cold weather kits before winter. Call Mike the Generator Guy for a free estimate at 845-227-0514. Online at EssentialPowersGenerators.com. Never be powerless. Get Generacted by Essential Power Systems.
Michael's Appliances presents Ask Andy, the appliance expert. Andy, what's the average amount of time for clothes to dry?
We've had customers call us up and they're timing their dryer, drying one shirt, and they can't understand why it takes an hour and a half for that one shirt to dry. If you're using an auto dry cycle, the sensors are never being touched by that one article of clothing. So consequently, it takes forever for the dryer to realize that things are done. Today, newer dryers, generally speaking, it's an hour, 70, 80, 90 minutes. It's not because we're burning tons of fuel. It's because we're using much less. Much lower temperature in the dryer overall, longer tumbling action. That helps to prevent wrinkles, and people are used to a 20-minute cycle drying. Those days are over. We used to make it very hot in the dryer and dry them very quickly. And of course, people have forgotten that then their clothes fit a Cabbage Patch doll when that happens.
Shop with the experts. Nobody knows appliances like Michael's Appliance Center, 585 East Main Street, Middletown. Online at michaelsappliance.com.
Your engine is a delicate instrument. But if you don't change the oil on a regular basis, things have a tendency to go wrong. That's why this news should be music to your ears. Because now at the Newburgh Auto Spa, you can get a free car wash with every oil change. That's right, a free car wash with every oil change.
Really?
Really. Stop into their state-of-the-art facility today and find out what quality maintenance is all about. We all need to get oil changes, so why not get a free car wash to go along with it? And while you're at it, take advantage of their 15-point vehicle inspection free of charge. That should leave you on a very happy note. Newburgh Auto Spa, located at 86 Route 17K in Newburgh. For more information, call 845-567-0009, 845-567-0009, or go online to newburghautospa.com. That's newburghautospa.com. Newburgh Auto Spa. Quick, convenient, clean.
Welcome back to Jake's Hot Takes, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to talk about Game 6. I'm not ecstatic to talk about Game 6, but I am ecstatic to talk about the first half of Game 6, because the first half of Game 6 looked like it was going to be a really competitive game. New York came out and was swinging and really getting things done early. They held Halliburton to a completely scoreless first quarter. Halliburton didn't score his first points until well into the second quarter. And I was loving what I was seeing out of guys. I was loving what I was seeing. And then all of a sudden, halftime hits and that Pacers devil magic kicks in, and the New York Knicks completely fall apart offensively and defensively. The second half of this game was night and day compared to each other in terms of the Knicks' performance. The defensive effort went from great on all fronts to basically a non-factor out of every guy on the court, even guys who we knew were more defensive-oriented players like Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby and DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet, those guys coming off the bench. just completely fell apart. The Pacers just could not be stopped on any front. It was like every point New York scored, the Pacers would just score 3 more right in our face. And the turnovers were a huge issue last night. And I'm going to get into the turnovers a little bit because there are 2 main guys that committed the turnovers that I will be criticizing very heavily. But, it was everything that I had complained about. The Knicks seemed to improve on in the first half and then fell apart on in the second half. Like I said, the transition defense and offense was terrible. There was a graphic showing that the Pacers severely outscored the Knicks in the transition, plays off of transition and points off of turnover. Pacers were sky high in that department. I think midway through the third quarter, I believe the Knicks only had 2 plays off of turnovers. So just not being able to capitalize on these opportunities, and there were opportunities, don't get me wrong, there were opportunities that this team absolutely failed to capitalize on. So I'm going through, we're doing the school teacher thing again. I'm going to give everybody a letter grade. Not a lot of people passed this test, all right? Everyone's coming in. I'm sitting on the desk with my head in my hands. I'm like, guys, this is not good. But there is one really great shining star that I want to give a big gold star to, and that is OG Anunoby. He finally started crashing the rim and utilizing his size and his strength and his physicality in a way that he got back to the high efficiency shots that I have been saying that Anunoby needs to return to for the entirety of these playoffs. I don't know what changed last night that Anunoby suddenly decided, oh yeah, that's right, I'm 6'7" and a massive, powerful human being, and I can get to the basket and I can make huge plays. Because he did. He made huge plays, and the 3-point shooting, the shot making, or the shot selection, lost it there for a sec. The shot selection, I think, was phenomenal. I think there were a few plays where he had really bad shot selection, but I think for the most part, it was a pretty decent IQ night for Anunoby. And, even in moments where he got beat, he still managed to recover and convert. There were 2 points in the game where he got his shot blocked. And on one of them, he recovered the ball and went up for a layup and got the foul, and he knocked down both of his free throws. And on the other one, he managed to get an assist to Mitchell Robinson, I want to say. I believe he tossed Mitchell Robinson a lob. I might be totally wrong about that. I know he got an assist. I just can't remember off the dome if it was to Mitchell Robinson. For all the mud I've slung at Anunoby throughout this series, he really did impress me. And it's unfortunate because his efficiency numbers kind of tanked because late in the game he started shooting more 3-point shots. And, of course, that never really goes great for Anunoby. But he finished the night with 24 points on 10 of 18 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, 5 rebounds and 3 assists, as well as 2 steals and 2 blocks. It was really a great performance out of Anunoby. And, I just need to give that shout out because in a way it did, even if we didn't win the game, it did feel good to see a guy on our team kind of recognize his full potential as a player. And I wish that it could have come a lot sooner than a must-win Game 6 in Indiana. But that's just the way of the road, So OG Anunoby, for your performance in Game 6, you get a big, fat A+. Moving on to the guys that I think had a good performance, it's just Mitchell Robinson. Once again, just creating opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. I loved what I saw out of him. He did pretty much exactly what he usually does. He got a couple monster jams. The fact that he was such a threat for the lob, I think consistently kept New York competitive on possessions where realistically we shouldn't have scored. Brunson or Bridges would just toss up the lob and Robinson would be right there to put it down. So I was a huge fan of what I saw out of Mitchell Robinson. He finished the day going 4 for 5 from the field, 8 points and 9 rebounds. Just productivity, just pure productivity out of Mitchell Robinson. He gets an A- for his performance just because he was close enough to getting the double-double. If he got the double-double, I would have given him the A+, but, just short. You got to get there. Now we're just getting to the guys who played okay. Karl Anthony Towns, a disappointing performance. I was kind of on the fence on whether or not I wanted to give him an okay or a bad rating. He's right on the fence, but I think there were I rate these guys on a curve, and I think in terms of how bad it could have been compared to some of the other guys who played tonight, I don't think Towns did anything particularly egregious or anything that warrants an insane amount of criticism. Just very quiet, didn't perform very highly, completely vanished. And if you want to say, well, he's an all-NBA caliber player, he needs to pop up in these moments, that's why he deserves a bad rating, I'm not going to disagree with you. But, compared to some other guys that we're going to talk about soon, it can really go either way. I give Karl Anthony Towns a C-. Landry Shamet did what he usually did, but he didn't start hitting shots until it really didn't matter in the fourth quarter. Once I saw Shamet out in the fourth quarter, once I saw him on the court, that's when I kind of realized, I was like, oh, yeah, it's over. That we're not coming back from this. But Shamet did his thing. I believe he finished the night going 4 for 7 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3. He only took 3-pointers, 12 points, and literally nothing else other than 2 assists. I don't have a lot to say about it. C+ for Landry Shamet. At least he hit a couple 3-pointers. And DeLon Wright, I literally have nothing to say about him. C. He gets a C. I got nothing to say. In terms of the guys that played bad, we got to talk about Deuce McBride because it was really rough out of him. I have standards for Deuce McBride, and seeing him go 0 for 2 from the field and 3 rebounds and an attempted tomahawk dunk against Obi Toppin. What on earth are you doing, man? It was poor shot selection. It was poor IQ. It was poor decision making. And of course, that defensive hustle that we usually saw at Deuce was pretty absent. I believe he got 1 steal that resulted in him stepping on the line, hitting a 3-pointer, but stepping on the line in the process. And, that is kind of the name of the game. Opportunities for the Knicks that they just couldn't capitalize on. And that was really disappointing to see. It stunk. It was a stinker performance out of Deuce. Kind of went out sad, but he didn't go out nearly as sad as these other guys. Mikal Bridges, 5 turnovers, man. Really? 5 turnovers in a must-win Game 6? It's disappointing. He had an efficient night, but he didn't have the volume to keep us competitive in the game. He finishes the day with 15 points on 6 of 9 shooting, 1 for 2 from 3, and 4 assists. Not to mention, again, 5 turnovers. This is not how you play winning basketball. And most of it came from passing. A lot of it came from passing. That's pretty much where all of our turnovers came from. We took decent care of the rock in terms of handling it, like ball handling, but it was the passing where we really put the ball in danger. And I think Indiana completely took advantage of an incredibly poor passing night, not just from Bridges, but from the team in general. And if you want to talk about a poor passing night, Jalen Brunson, possibly one of the weakest performances we've seen out of him in this entire playoff series. Maybe the weakest. Definitely the weakest in this playoff series. Maybe the weakest performance we've seen from him in the entire postseason. Jalen Brunson finishes the season on 19 points on 8 of 18 shooting, 2 for 7 from 3, 7 assists, and 5 turnovers. If you only have 2 more assists than you did turnovers, and you are supposed to be the floor general, you are doing something wrong. Not to mention, Brunson had a terrible night from a passing perspective. He was unable to provide any scoring on his own whatsoever. I mean, Nembhard locked him up. That's the simple reality of the situation. Nembhard laid the mitts on Brunson, and Brunson could not handle that physicality. He could not handle that level of physicality. He was getting pushed around all night, and the Pacers kept on trapping him right by the half-court line and keeping him there and forcing him to make these passes. They didn't allow any penetration to the paint whatsoever, and it completely removed Brunson from the game. I mean, he popped off early. He had a great early game where he was getting to the basket and he was hitting threes and he was looking great. And then halftime struck, the Pacers' devil magic kicked in, and Brunson just completely forgot how to play basketball. Incredibly sad showing out of Jalen Brunson. Like I said, just completely unable to do anything in the face of this Pacers defense. And there was frustration there, and I understand the frustration. I mean, he's a player that usually has such control over the game. And the fact that he didn't in this situation probably frustrated him a lot. And I'm running short on time right now. The music's about to kick in. Hold on one second. There we go. But there is one more guy that I want to talk about before I get into kind of my conclusion for the season. And if you've been looking at the depth chart, you probably know who I'm talking about. It's not Ariel Hukporti. It's not Precious Achiuwa. We'll be right back after this. Jake's Hot Takes, WGNY 1220 94.5 News Talk Sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, I'm Mark Guido. Thank you for making Frank Guido's Little Italy the #1 location for all of your special occasions. From an intimate family gathering to a festive affair for up to 100 guests, Little Italy is the place to go. We are experienced, professional, and affordable. Whether it's birthdays, anniversaries, reunions, retirements, rehearsal dinners, and even after funeral gatherings, Little Italy has the perfect size space with delicious food at a reasonable price. You enjoy your event and let us do all the work. Call Marie at 845-340-1682 or visit us online at frankguidoslittleitaly.com. Call Marie at 845-340-1682 or visit us online at frankguidoslittleitaly.com. Little Italy has the perfect size space with delicious food at a reasonable price. You will be glad you did. And remember, as always, come celebrate on the day of your birthday and get up to a $25 value on us.
Michael's Appliances presents Ask Andy, the appliance expert. Andy, is it bad to use fabric softener sheets?
More often than not, a fabric softener sheet helps keep the static down in your dryer. Most newer dryers, the lint screen is so fine that the oils in the fabric softener sheet actually plug up your lint screen. Reduces efficiency, causes overheating, causes the machine to kick off on high limit. So sometimes what you really want to do is not use dryer sheets. Use the same dryer sheet 2 or 3 times. Fabric softener in the washer is the better way to go. Most people don't realize that all the lint in your dryer actually comes from your washing machine. It's the agitating action that causes a problem where the clothing is scrubbing together and you end up with all the little pilling. And a fabric softener actually will help lessen the pilling if it's in the washing machine.
Shop with the experts. Nobody knows appliances like Michael's Appliance Center, 585 East Main Street, Middletown. Online at michaelsappliance.com.
The power of Dell AI with Intel Inside is transforming the world of pro sports. Teams can see curveballs coming with predictive analytics. Coaches can use AI insights to help players improve their shots in real time. And fans can get more out of every winning moment with AI-enhanced replays.
Unbelievable! What a play!
See how Dell Technologies with Intel Inside can power your wins at Dell.com/win.
At Straight Talk, we are all about no-brainers. Calling Grandma for her recipe, no-brainer. Streaming one more episode at 2 a.m., big no-brainer. Getting real unlimited data where you buy bananas, the ultimate no-brainer. Switch now and get a free Samsung Galaxy A16 5G or Moto G Power 5G 2025 with select plans. Straight Talk, real unlimited data. Available at Walmart and straighttalk.com. Offer valid through 7/20/25. Taxes and fees apply. Requires in-store activation of single line gold unlimited plan or higher. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com/terms. Copyright 2025 Verizon.
Well, you guys had an entire commercial break to figure out who I was talking about. Like I said, if you were paying attention to the depth chart, it wasn't Ariel Hukporti. It wasn't Precious Achiuwa. We need to talk about Josh Hart. Oh, man. Let me set the stage for you, all right? I was watching the game with my family last night, my little sister and my dad. And my dad just mentioned offhandedly, you know, it seems like every time Josh Hart is on the court, something bad happens. It seems like every time the Knicks seem to fall behind, it's because Josh Hart is on the court. And I was frustrated with that assessment because, of course, my dad is a basketball casual. He didn't see everything that Josh Hart did to get us to this point. And, my dad usually knows what he's talking about. But in this case, I thought to myself, man, there's no way that he knows what he's talking about. Josh Hart he was terrible this series. My dad was right again. And he wasn't just terrible in in like a disappearing kind of way. It's like actively terrible, where every time he needs to do something, whether it's on offense or on defense, he gives you something that is more embarrassing than the last thing that you just saw, whether it be not deciding to shoot a layup or throw a lob and somehow trying to do both in the same play, or whether it be all of his defensive mishaps, or whether it be his failed, completely awful passing night. Josh Hart was the worst player on the court last night. There's simply no way to get around it. And I do wonder if there is some kind of injury problem with Josh Hart. I wouldn't be surprised if we found out that he was playing on some kind of injury, because it was just so uncharacteristic. It was like the Josh Hart that we had seen in this Pacers series was completely different than the Josh Hart that we had seen across this entire season. And to see him go out so sad like that was just really tough. So Josh Hart, you get Jake's Hot Takes first official F- as your final grade. But enough of the negative. I'm going to get into some discussion about the season as a whole. Generally what I'm thinking, my knee-jerk reaction as a fan of this team coming into this offseason. It was a heck of a run, guys. It was a heck of a run. The fact that we went out incredibly sad should not deter from the fact that this is possibly the best that this team has looked in a very long time. And you really need to keep in context what we watched transpire throughout this season, you know? Does it stink getting to watch the Pacers be all smug and watch Andrew Nembhard push Brunson around and be a nuisance and you know, just generally watch the Pacers be a bunch of smug jerks? Yeah, it stinks. It really stinks. But this team, this New York Knicks team, got so much further than I think anyone was expecting throughout this season. I mean, we traded away so many of our current pieces. You know, we lost Randall, we lost Hartenstein, we lost DiVincenzo. And the fact that we were able to put together a team that without a full offseason came together and rallied and got to that third seed in the East. And, you know, they said we weren't tough enough to beat Detroit. And then we went and beat Detroit in 6. And then they said that we weren't going to beat the reigning champion Boston Celtics. And then we went and beat the reigning champion Boston Celtics in 6 with incredible defensive performances and offensive performances out of everyone at different points in time. And then they said that we weren't tough enough to beat the Pacers. And they were right. But that still doesn't change the fact that we took a very tough, very well put together, very cohesive Pacers team to a very uncomfortable place in terms of the series. I know it would have been nice to see a Game 7, but you need to put it all in context. This Pacers team has been at it for the last 3 years with this core making runs to the second round 2 years ago, and then to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and now to the finals this year. This is the progression of NBA teams. This is, you know, losing in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's a rite of passage for this team. It's not like our first year together, we're going to make it all the way to the finals and upset the Oklahoma City Thunder. This team needs time to gel, and the fact that we got so much further than everyone from different fan bases and in the media were giving us credit for, I think that's something really special. And the fact that this team had so many big question marks, like Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, it made me so happy getting to see that these guys were in fact justified, that the decision to blow up the roster was justified, and that we came together and got better. Because at the end of the day, this team is better. And getting to see Mikal Bridges be the hero of the first 2 games of the Boston series in Boston, when people said that we gave up too many assets for him and that he wasn't, you know, we overvalued him and that he's not going to contribute as much as we'd hope he would. The fact that he got a chance to be the hero for this team makes me really happy. And the same thing with Karl Anthony Towns in Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals. You know, Towns, they said that Towns wasn't tough enough. They said that he didn't have the IQ. They said that he didn't gel well with the team. And the fact that he got to be, like I said, the fact that he got to be the hero for this team just gives me so much hope for the future, you know? And yes, Bridges and Towns did absolutely disappear late in this series, and that is undeniable. But it's not like this is an unfixable problem. You know, we still have so much that we can look forward to with this team. Think about what this team is going to accomplish with a full offseason, letting Towns and Bridges find themselves even more in their role on the team. Hopefully, we have guys like McBride taking a step forward. Hopefully, we have guys like Anunoby taking a step forward. Hopefully, Josh Hart remembers how to play basketball again. But having this be your first year together with this core and going to the Eastern Conference Finals, that's something special. And if you don't have a lot of hope for this team in the future moving forward, if you think that this team is headed towards a dead end, you should probably start watching the games. But no, overall, this was just a great season. It was a great season. It was undeniably a great season because not only did we overachieve, not only did we accomplish things, and not only did we prove a lot of doubters wrong, it was fun to watch. At the end of the day, this team was so much fun to watch, and I cannot wait to be right back here in this studio next season talking about it. And I'm telling you, the Knicks are going all the way next year. Next year is going to be the year. I got a good feeling about it. And I know I sound like every delusional New York sports fan, but this time I really mean it. And then to finish off this segment, I just want to talk about some hopes for next season. I really hope that the organization decides not to blow up this team and go and pursue a major superstar. I really hope that I don't, wake up and see a notification on my phone that we traded for Giannis. Just keeping this team together right now, at least this starting five, I think that is what this team needs. I think, Indiana and Boston are great examples of what you can accomplish when you keep a team together and you keep that cohesion building, and you let these players understand each other on a deeper level and understand how to play to their strengths and cover their weaknesses when they need to. So, I hope that the New York front office doesn't go and blow things up and pursue a quick hit of dopamine, like, oh, we got Giannis in exchange for trading away this team's future. Not to mention Mitchell Robinson was missing for 2/3 of the season. With him on the roster next season, we got a shot at the 2 seed. We got a shot at the 1 seed, I would even say. I mean, the Celtics are missing Jason Tatum. So I would say the Celtics are probably not going to be, in that top 3 seed conversation next season. It's probably going to come down to Cleveland and Indiana and New York. And out of those 3 teams, I think we could absolutely get a very high-reaching seed. And who knows, with an advantage like that, it might just be the spark that this team needs to push forward and make a real run to the finals. Now, that being said, a lot of really tough teams next year. Cleveland's going to be coming back with a vengeance. Indiana is going to remain Indiana. I'm sure of it. But, there's a lot to look forward to, regardless. There is a lot to look forward to. And, I know I said that I want to keep this core together, but one guy that I am hoping that we could potentially secure this offseason would be Austin Reeves. I think that he is a much needed, consistent 3-point shooter. I believe his contract expires or is going to expire at the end of this season. So he's going to be looking for a new destination. I can't imagine LA is going to have the money to pay him considering Luka. So I'm hopeful that New York might actually go and pursue Austin Reeves. I believe New York is also the primary destination for Reeves based on the betting odds, which I know doesn't really mean anything. I mean, Vegas is just setting up whatever to get people to throw some money on it and, just sweep it all away once Austin Reeves decides to go to, I don't know, like Houston or something like that. But I think he would be a really great 3-point shooting piece because we were missing a lot of 3-point consistency throughout the season. I mean, Anunoby is one of the guys that shot the most threes on our team by a long shot, and he was not a consistent 3-point shooter at all. We would have random nights where Brunson would look good from 3. We would have random nights where Bridges would look good from 3. We would have random nights where Towns look good from 3, but I wouldn't classify any of these guys as consistent 3-point shooters. So having a guy that can bring some defense off or some 3-point shooting off the bench, maybe at the cost of some defense. Okay. I had a thought in my brain, not going to say it. Josh Hart maybe needs to go, but that's neither here nor there. Austin Reeves, I think, would be an excellent addition to this team in terms of filling out the roster and addressing some of the weaknesses that this team has. And it's something that I would love to see, because as good as this roster was, there definitely were a lot of weaknesses. And I think the better that we can cover those weaknesses in the offseason, the more well-rounded of a team will be moving forward. So that's pretty much my thoughts on the Knicks season this year. When we get back, I'm going to be talking about my NBA Finals predictions. I will be covering the finals as normal, so stick around, find out my predictions so you can realize how right I'm going to be right here on Jake's Hot Takes, WGNY 1220 94.5 News Talk Sports. We'll be right back after this.
Michael's Appliances presents Ask Andy, the appliance expert. Andy, what makes my oven smell so bad when I self-clean?
Self-clean, my favorite weapon in the world. Self-cleaning is a brutal environment. Most people don't think about it. They hear self-clean. I'm not really sure if they're picturing scrubbing bubbles inside there, but what's really happening is we're heating the oven up hot enough to carbonize protein. We're going to take the food stuff that's left in your stove, and we're actually going to carbonize it. We're going to turn it to dust. So we're 700 degrees. So why does it smell bad? You're setting fire to a chicken. Today, a lot of the new stoves, because of the energy guidelines, there is no real self-clean anymore. They don't want those high temperatures. It's a huge waste of energy. It's very easy. You don't have to get on your hands and knees, and your back doesn't hurt. You're not scrubbing the stove, but we use a ton of energy to clean the inside of that stove by heating it up.
Shop with the experts. Nobody knows appliances like Michael's Appliance Center, 585 East Main Street, Middletown. Online at michaelsappliance.com.
Your life relies on power all day, every day. With spring upon us, weather-related storms and power outages disrupt your home life, work life, and more. Don't be left in the dark. Call Essential Power Systems, your local Generac automatic standby power dealer, protecting your family, home, and business. Already have a Generac? Ask about maintenance, monitors, and cold weather kits before winter. Call Mike the Generator Guy for a free estimate at 845-227-0514. Online at EssentialPowersGenerators.com. Never be powerless. Get Generacted by Essential Power Systems. You've long known that Newburgh Auto Spa on Route 17K utilizes top caliber products and the latest technology to give your vehicle the proper maintenance it needs. Whether it be a computerized soft cloth car wash, detailing consisting of a comprehensive bumper-to-bumper cleaning of your entire interior and exterior, or a fuel-efficient oil change from a trained technician, Newburgh Auto Spa is the place to go. Now, Newburgh Auto Spa is a full-service automotive center. That's right, Newburgh Auto Spa now offers tires, brakes, rotors, tune-ups, alternators, and more, all with the same professionalism and quality you've become accustomed to. For a full list of automotive services offered and specials, go to NewburghAutospa.com. Whether you need a basic car wash, a quick oil change, or now more extensive automotive service, Newburgh Auto Spa is the place to go. Newburgh Auto Spa, quick, convenient, clean, located at 86 Route 17K and online at NewburghAutospa.com. Now offering a full range of automotive services. Newburgh Auto Spa, quick, convenient, clean.
Davis Furniture in Poughkeepsie is having a floor model clearance sale, up to 70% off. That's right, Davis Furniture needs to make room for new arrivals and is having a floor model clearance sale with up to 70% off. At Davis Furniture on Route 9 in Poughkeepsie, all their furniture is American-made and chemical-free. You and your family deserve the Davis Furniture difference and a healthier life. DavisFurnitureOnline.com.
Welcome back. Jake's Hot Takes, WGNY 94.5. Hug a Knicks fan today, if you know one. Hug a Knicks fan. And if you are one, give yourself a hug for sticking with this team. Because it's time to talk about the finals now. Jeez, man. And the Indiana Pacers are taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. And this is going to be an incredibly interesting series, I think. The Thunder are a team who have prided themselves on building around a strong defensive core. And I think that's interesting because I don't necessarily think it is the model that Indiana has faced in some of their more intense playoff matchups throughout this season. Cleveland and New York, I wouldn't necessarily quantify as defense first teams. And I think that's going to be an interesting matchup because Indiana's strategy, their identity as a team, has always just been outmatching, bringing up the speed of the game and outmatching the other team, really just putting pedal to the metal and putting teams on their heels and going on these huge runs and kind of just trying to bury teams as quickly as possible, by playing out of transition, by having an emphasis on steals and turnovers in their defense, and, fast ball movement combined with incredibly talented sharpshooters like Nesmith and Siakam and Halliburton. And this team can be very overwhelming to play, but I feel like the Oklahoma City Thunder, part of their identity is playing at their own speed. Whether it be guys who are very good at maintaining the pace of the game like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Chet Holmgren or Jalen Williams, I think that those are all guys who do a good job of not getting swept up by the game speed that the other team is trying to play. And I think you saw that a little bit in Minnesota, against Minnesota. Guys like Julius Randle play at a very high pace. Guys like Anthony Edwards play at a very high pace. But Oklahoma City having that defensive identity kind of allowed them to anchor down and force the teams that they were playing against to slow down and respect them. And then even when you have Oklahoma City playing against a very slow and methodical guy like Jokic, who almost kind of chokes the life out of you by how slow and methodically he can organize the game, the Thunder didn't let him bring it down to that pace and still kept it at a pace where guys like Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. were having trouble keeping up. So it is interesting kind of seeing a team whose identity is around game speed as quickly as possible going against game speed at whatever we feel comfortable. And that is really where I think most of this series is going to come down to, whether or not Oklahoma City can disrupt Indiana and prevent those really big runs. And I'm inclined to say that they can. And I think it's going to come down to a couple factors. The Indiana Pacers could barely handle Mitchell Robinson as an interior force. And in several games, Karl Anthony Towns as an interior force. I love Mitchell Robinson and I love Karl Anthony Towns. They are by no means the most physical, strongest players in the NBA. They're big, and especially Mitchell Robinson, he is imposing, but Towns is not an incredibly imposing guy. And even he, across many games, it took two guys down low to really shut down Towns. And that was actually something that I meant to mention during Towns' segment in the reviews, but Indiana did a great job of having help defense slide over down low in the paint and preventing Towns from playing his usual bully ball. So kudos to Indiana on that. But that combination of Hartenstein and Holmgren down low is going to be next to impossible for Indiana to manage. And part of it is that as talented of offensive players as Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam are, they are soft defensively. Let's not pretend like they're not. Miles Turner is soft. Pascal Siakam is soft. Hartenstein and Holmgren are not soft. These guys are tough, they're physical, they're down low, and they're going to let you know it. So I think the big man matchup is going to be incredibly interesting. I think the only guy that can really physically contend with Hartenstein and Holmgren down low is going to be Obi Toppin. But Obi Toppin is not an incredibly high IQ guy. And oftentimes he can be a bit of a defensive liability when it comes to some of the shiftier guys on the court. Take like a Jalen Williams or a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Not to mention, Toppin is not great at not fouling. And of course, if you're going to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder, you need to talk about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And if you're going to talk about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you need to talk about his ability to draw fouls. I can very easily see the Indiana Pacers getting incredibly frustrated playing this team because Indiana fans, and there was that video of the Indiana players on the sideline in Game 5 saying, oh, the refs aren't giving us any calls. We need to play through it. The refs aren't giving us any calls. If you think the whistle is soft with New York, you are going to be crying when you have to play Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander an incredibly talented scorer? Absolutely. You take this season and you remove his free throws, and I believe he was either still the top leading scorer or the second highest leading scorer. Point is, he can get it done without the free throws. And he has been dominating in the mid-range throughout this entire playoff series. And that's just what makes him so lethal. He doesn't need the three ball like Boston did, or, like a guy like Mitchell does, where Donovan Mitchell, where it's an incredibly important part of his game. He doesn't necessarily need it, but it is incredibly important to him. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander doesn't need that three ball. He will dominate you driving to the basket with his layups and his mid-range. And if Nembhard or Nesmith or Toppin or whoever tries to play that hard physical defense against Alexander like they did on Brunson, it's not going to work. The whistle is too light with Shai. And look, the truth is, guys that excel in the league have gotten softer whistles across all of sports, I would say. You can very easily look to plays where Josh Allen gets hit and that flag gets thrown. Mahomes gets hit and that flag gets thrown. Burrow gets hit and that flag gets thrown. That's in football. In basketball, you can see it with guys like Luka. You can see it with a much older LeBron, not the early LeBron. Early LeBron was a monster pretty much up until until he got to the Lakers, really. I would say the whistle was not a major part of LeBron's game. But just across the league, you can see a lot of guys that rely on drawing fouls as part of their game. And some people call it foul baiting, but I think if it's an effective tactic and you can get away with it and it'll help your team win a basketball game, why shouldn't you do it? If it's really that big of a concern, the league needs to come together and discuss it in a way that allows players to continue their current play style while optimizing the rules to make sure that the game remains as fair as possible. It shouldn't be up to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to change how he plays if how he plays is allowing his team to be successful and win. That being said, the Indiana Pacers could barely handle Brunson, who maybe has a slightly softer whistle on average, getting to the free throw line as many times as he did. Imagine how bad it's going to be with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, Aaron Nesmith is just going to be throwing his hands up like this every single play. He fouls all the time. Every single play, he throws his hands up like this. Shai is going to run circles around these guys, plain and simple. There is just nothing you can do against him. Not to mention, I would say the Oklahoma City Thunder's defense is significantly better than New York. Like I said, they are not going to allow those easy moments in transition where the Pacers can just go and get an easy layup or an easy dunk. There are no free buckets with Oklahoma City, and especially down low. Like I said, I don't think guys like Turner and Siakam are going to be able to contend with Holmgren and Hartenstein. They're just too physical. They're too down low. They're too meaty. Even though Holmgren kind of looks like a skinny Abraham Lincoln, he still can play some muscle ball here and there. Not to mention, this Oklahoma City team has so much chemistry. It's like a science class, how they just throw these elements together and boom, they work. Guys like Alex Caruso are such abrasive and gritty defenders. They are guys like Caruso and Hartenstein and Caruso and Hartenstein. I don't know why I just completely blanked on that, but Caruso and Hartenstein are two guys that I'll give examples of. Incredibly gritty defenders who are not going to give up buckets like that, because not only are they gritty, they're physical. And they're physical in a way that really great defenders on New York aren't. Like Mikal Bridges, great defender. He uses his body in he uses his body and his positioning in a way that can shut down passing lanes and just prevent looks. And Bridges isn't focused on physically stopping you. He's focused on preventing the opportunity to score. Guys like Caruso will use his body to physically stop you. And the same goes for Holmgren, and the same goes for Hartenstein. And to a lesser extent, the same goes for Lou Dort. Lou Dort, that's the name who I was trying to think of. Lou Dort. Lou Dort is a physical player. He can use his body. I just don't like a lot of the matchups that I see. I think Hartenstein has an advantage. I'm just going, straight across right now, position for position. Hartenstein, I got over Miles Turner. I got Holmgren over Siakam in terms of how they can play each other. I think Siakam is probably a better scorer, but I think overall as a basketball player, I would take Chet Holmgren. Alexander and Halliburton are going to be going at each other all day. They're both kind of fly swatty defenders where you really need to be watching your back and making sure that you're not giving an easy look for them, because if they get that easy look, they will absolutely take it. So I'm just going to give my final prediction right now. I'm going to say Thunder in 5, and I think it's going to be embarrassing. But of course, good luck to both of these teams. It's always exciting seeing a franchise get a ring. And tune in next Thursday, Jake's Hot Takes. We're doing a pre-finals discussion again. WGNY 1220 94.5 News Talk Sports. Next Thursday, same time, same place. Don't miss it. Jake's Hot Takes. Woo!
WGNY Newburgh, WJGK HD2 Newburgh Middletown, WGNY 1220 94.5 News Talk Sports.